In this lecture, I have an exercise for you. We're going to create a robot. Before I throw the exercise at you, I want to teach you one more thing. In game development, there's something called the forward vector. The forward vector refers to the direction an object is facing or moving. This concept is crucial to understand. You should always establish which direction an object is moving. If you're developing a game with characters, the characters will have faces. It would be awkward if characters were facing in the opposite direction they were moving. Therefore, you should always consider where the forward direction is. Let's click on the cube with the Select tool. We have multiple faces on the cube. Before creating a robot, we must determine where the robot is facing. It's common practice to use the direction of the blue arrow as the forward direction. In this case, this side of the cube would be the forward direction. Dozens of developers consider the direction of the blue arrow to always be the forward direction. We're going to adopt this practice. Let's quickly adjust the cube. First, let's rotate the cube so that the blue arrow points toward us. Next, if the cube is tilted, adjust the tilt to be flat. We don't want our robot to look tilted. Lastly, if the cube's forward direction is too small, scale the cube. Keep in mind, we're going to create a robot. The face of the robot should look nice and even. Great! It's time for the exercise. I want you to create the face of the robot. In the scene, add 3 more game objects. 2 game objects should be spheres. These objects will represent the eyes. The last game object can be a capsule. This object will be used for the mouth. These shapes can be found under the 3D menu option for creating objects. Move, scale, and rotate the objects onto the robot to create a face. It doesn't have to be perfect or accurate. The overall goal of this exercise is to practice with the tools for manipulating game objects. You may also need to rotate around the game object for accuracy. Pause the video and good luck. Welcome back. If you were able to create the robot, that's great. If not, that's fine too. Let's try creating a robot together. As mentioned, we should create a robot with a face. The face will have 2 eyes and a mouth. To create the eyes, we'll use a sphere. From the hierarchy, right-click to open the menu for creating objects. Under the 3D menu, select Sphere. Firstly, let's move the sphere close to us. It should be in front of the cube. At this point, the cube or sphere should not be touching. Next, let's select the sphere. After selecting it, switch over to the Scale tool. The gizmo should appear for the sphere. From the center, I'm going to resize the sphere to be smaller than the cube. Keep in mind, this shape will represent an eye. It should be a decent size for an eyeball. After resizing the sphere, let's move it into the cube. Before doing so, let's verify the forward direction of the cube. We don't want the eye to appear in the back of the head. Click on the cube with the Select tool. The eye should be positioned on the side with the blue arrow pointing to it. I'm going to start moving the sphere with the Move tool. In this example, the shapes are overlapping with one another. The sphere should sink into the cube. We don't want the entire sphere to stick out. Just to make sure, I'm going to move the scene camera around the cube. This step is to make sure I'm happy with the depth of the eye. Awesome! We can start working on the second eye. I'm going to adjust the scene's camera to face the robot again. For the next step, we're going to take a slightly different approach. The eyes should be the same size. To avoid guessing, we can duplicate game objects. Let me show you how. From the hierarchy, select the sphere. Next, press the Ctrl-D keys on your keyboard. If you're on a Mac, the keyboard shortcut would be Command-D. This shortcut produces a duplicate game object. If we look at the scene, nothing seems different. The reason is simple. The second sphere holds the same coordinates, scale, and rotation as the original sphere. They're overlapping with one another. From the hierarchy, I'm going to select the second sphere. Next, switch over to the Move tool. We're going to move the second eye to the opposite side of the first eye. Once again, you do not have to be accurate. Try your best to position the eye. The last step is to work on the mouth. For the mouth, let's use a capsule. On the hierarchy, right-click to open the menu. Next, under the 3D Object menu, select Capsule. After creating the capsule, move it closer to the camera with the Select tool. It should be in front of the robot. Afterward, resize the capsule to be an appropriate size for the mouth. You can resize a game object with the Scale tool. Once you're satisfied with the size, move and rotate the game object into the robot. The mouth will appear below the eyes of the robot. Feel free to make additional adjustments until you're happy with the face. Be sure to move around the game object. The mouth should be as even as possible. Great! Let's look at the robot from a distance to view the final results. More or less, you should have something similar to what I have. It doesn't have to be 100% the same as mine. Before concluding the lecture, let's rename the shapes to accurately describe the objects. The current names are not useful. For the cube, set the name to Robot. Next, select the first sphere. Set the name to I1. The second sphere will be called I2. Lastly, the capsule will be called Mouth. This step is not necessary. However, it's never a bad idea to be organized. I encourage you to add more features to the robot. For example, you can add antennas. Alternatively, you can change the shape of the eyes or mouth. Instead of spheres, you can use cubes. The sky is the limit. If you decide to adjust the bot, post a screenshot in the Q&A section or the official Discord server. I would love to see what you come up with. Once you're finished toying around, let's keep exploring Unity. I'll see you in the next lecture.